Hey there, this is Lols. Today we'll take a look at another new PvP skill build of mine. Yes, I've changed again. Previously I was using the Meteor style for fun for quite some time, but it was pretty short-lived because in order to maximize that skill build or using Meteor Storm in Battlefield or in KVM, I need my opponent to be in a standstill for a full 3.5 seconds. For me to cast my Meteor Storm is not really possible. The longest duration of Frozen is just 3 seconds. Stun is possible, but right now many people are having stun resist, and the combination between that with Meteor Storm has to be perfectly matched, which means upon casting Gravity, my opponent has to be stunned at the very first hit, which then I can rain down Meteor Storm onto the opponent to deal a combo damage that can pretty much take away 50% HP up to 80 to even 90% HP if there's a burn effect carried after Meteor Storm. But again, for that to happen, it takes very precise control of the battlefield and knowing who to cast it on, and at the same time my Meteor Storm has to hit fully. Otherwise, most of the time my Meteor Storm will be hitting nowhere, just a blank space, because opponent has actually run out of my attack range. Now, having said that, I've actually derived it to another better skill build in my opinion, which is having it to be more irritating, I would say, in terms of skill casters or even attack speed class, whereby I will be able to keep freezing and freezing, and at the same time dealing damage in between. Okay, so as you can see just now, the amount of freeze that is being stacked onto the priest is amazing. With the freeze stacking on one after another, it can literally interrupt almost any skill that the priest is casting. At the same time, dealing damage in between using wind skills, using firebolt, and also using vortex as a filler. So on top of that, I can also manual cast my gravity and my distorted earth for more crowd control. So let's take a look at the actual setup of this skill build. Okay, so again, we'll take a look at the auto part. The auto portion is this for skill. Okay, so I would say this skill build is pretty versatile in terms of being in the 1v1 situation or in a team fight situation. Okay, so over here in my first auto skill is Frosty Mist. Why do I do that? It's because Frosty Mist allow me to actually bring down the movement speed of the opponent. Of course, the first thing is that Frosty Mist is an instant cast skill. So upon seeing opponent, you'll be cast. The opponent will be inflicted with reduce in movement speed and also granting a chance to be frozen for 3 seconds. Now, as you can see just now, when Frosty Mist is being cast, even though the opponent is still running on the move, casting a skill onto the opponent will trigger Frosty Mist, and then you will freeze the opponent. So this is a very good starter skill to have the opponent frozen immediately, so that you can do more damage, do more CC, or allowing teammates to actually deal damage onto the particular opponent. Okay, and then afterwards there is another freeze to follow up, which is a Frost Diver. So Frosty Mist to induce the chance in granting a chance to be frozen for the opponent, hitting them with a wind skill, either Jupiter Thunder or Chain Lightning. Now, these two skill has two great differences, which I'll be explaining a bit later. But having said that, dealing them with wind skill will actually not just frozen the opponent, but also deal additional damage because wind against water. By now, you should know all that. Okay, so after hitting them with Jupiter Thunder or any wind skills, or typically any skills that you can hit it on, it will freeze the opponent, and then followed up by another freeze, which is the second freeze, which will prolong the freezing duration. After which, casting down Storm Gust, which needs the time to channel. So having that set up prior to that will allow you to actually have more ample time to either cast the freeze, or you want to go on a manual mode to do gravity or distorted earth, depending on the situation. But if let's say you want it to be fully auto, the casting, the sequence will be this way. Okay, after which, by chance, opponent will be frozen again, because Storm Gust will need 3 stacks in order to freeze, but this freeze will be lasting for 3 seconds without breaking, even though the opponent is taking hit from a skill. Okay, so when that happens, the next follow-up skill could be either one of these. Okay, so in this sequence, Vortex could happen, okay, which we have seen in the previous example. When Vortex happens, Vortex having 4 orbs of water, that will freeze the opponent again. So we can make a calculation. There's 1 freeze over here, 2 freeze, 3, 4 freezes in 1 auto sequence combo. Okay, and then follow up by damage skill. For me, I am using Firebolt because I have fire element, so that is advantageous for me. And then follow up by Chain Lightning to deal the quick damage and high DPS, and then you will cycle back to Frosty Mist or Jupiter Thunder plus Frost Diver, and then Storm Gust again. So this sequence or these few skills adding together is the effect that you have seen just now in the example on the priest. So in the case of targeting any class, this is very helpful. Okay, now coming to what I mentioned just now of the great differences between casting Jupiter Thunder versus casting Chain Lightning after Frosty Mist is this now. Okay, so now I just 3 target. This is much more easier. So Frosty Mist hits 3 targets. Chain Lightning, you can see this target has 2 tick of damage taken from Chain Lightning, and the freeze duration is greatly reduced as compared to other 2. So take a look at again at this. Now this is taking more tick of the damage, while this 2 is just 1 hit from Chain Lightning. That actually allows the freeze to be at full duration, which is the 3 seconds. Whereas if the target is taking more than 1 tick of Chain Lightning, upon the second hit, it will break the ice. So this is something that I've actually tried out and take notice of. If let's say today I am going for the CC portion, which is the freeze and freeze and freeze, I will likely to do this and then Jupiter Thunder, which actually allows me to freeze the opponent for 3 full seconds, as compared to Frosty Mist and then like this. Now both has pros and cons. Firstly, dealing Jupiter Thunder only allows you to target 1 target to be frozen. But if let's say in the situation whereby in KVM, opponents are clustered in at least 3 or 4 players together, Chain Lightning will be traveling through them, which allows you to freeze multiple targets at once. So that really depends on the situation, but as for me, during KVM, I'm always being gunned down, so a lot of times I find myself having to deal with one particular class, be it Rune Knight, be it the Assassin Cross, and sometimes even the Ranger, which I have to run close enough to freeze and then to run away. So really depends on situation, but these 4 skills can be played around in various combinations, but as of now, this is what I like dealing this kind of a combination. So Vortex is a good add-on when there is enough water enhancement in place. So based on this auto sequence, we can see that stacking up 4 water enhancement is pretty simple, and as the cycle goes on, waiting for the vortex to cool down, we will actually clock in another 4 enhancement, 4 water enhancement, which allows us to deal another freeze damage onto the opponent. So this set of auto skill is really very focused on the freeze, right? Because freezing in the battlefield is still largely effective, because not many people are having freeze resistance as compared to stun resistance, because all classes can stun but only wizard can freeze. So that is why having stun resistance is much more valuable in KVM rather than freeze, unless you have enough card slots to deal it. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty difficult to counter against freezing combo such as this. So as you can see, although they are dummies, but imagine these are actual players being stuck down by your freezers. We just be there, being gunned down, being CC. Of course, there's a situation whereby they break away pretty quickly, but of course, this will allow us to actually have more time to take a look at what is happening around the battlefield rather than keeping ourselves in check to see whether are we being attacked or not. So this actually forms 2 important roles. One, to CC the opponent, to keep them away, to deal damage. 2, also to protect ourselves as we are actually freezing them, stopping them, and interrupting them from casting, especially when this is targeted onto skill-based classes like the Warlock, like the Priest. So this is what I find much more effective than the Meteor Storm style. Okay, so this is what I have, and then of course, as time goes by, we see the opportunity to cast other skills such as Distorted Earth while opponents are being frozen. This actually help us to trigger the curse effect comes with Distorted Earth. So this is something very nice, and at the same time, if the situation allows, we can do a freeze. We can do a stun, sorry. So stun, freeze, and petrify, stun, freeze, and petrify. What do you think about this new PvP skill build of mine? Let me know in the comment section below.